I'm ready. Hey everybody, this is Shenandoah County Sheriff Tim Carter, and today I have two special guests with me. I have the Superintendent of Public Schools here in Shenandoah County, Dr. Johnston. Thanks for being with us today. And I also have Sergeant Whitney Mauck, who is the Supervisor of our School Resource Officer program. And I do want to say before we get started, Dr. Johnston, I know you're a busy person, and I know you got a lot on your plate these days. I really do appreciate you coming in here with us today and giving us a few minutes of your time.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, and one of the things I think we've had some challenges this year with COVID and mitigation issues and all of that. It's my understanding that schools have now gone back to more of an in-person. I know you guys were doing, for a while you did virtual, then for a while you did the hybrid, and now you're going into more in-person attendance. I think you still have a virtual option too.
Correct.
But I guess I just wanted to know how that's going with you and your staff, and are you seeing an increase in student attendance, and how are things going?
Yeah, we're seeing a little bit of an uptick in some behavior issues, which wouldn't be unexpected, given more students back, more days per week. But again, since the beginning of the year, our pre-K through 5 students have been coming to school 4 days a week or have been virtual. 6 through 12 have been coming 1 day a week. This past Monday of this week, we opened up to 4 days a week for anyone who wanted it. So I know we've picked up another 900 students this week. At this point, still some are coming back right after spring break.
Right.
And so on. So like I said, more students, more days, more interactions. So some discipline issues picking up and so on, but all along the way, the school resource officers have been a very big help to us, even when students were only virtual, helping us do things like wellness checks and so on. So,
right. Well, we had a conversation the other day with Transportation Supervisor, Mr. Long, and we want to put this out, even though it's not part of the program today. I did want to say this. We all know, schools and law enforcement know, that traffic has picked up around the school campuses in the mornings and in the afternoons, and it's just something that we're asking people's patience and understanding with. Be mindful of the pedestrian traffic, be mindful that it's going to take you longer to get through these things. They were never really, in my mind, at least just my little understanding of it all, I don't think these campuses were designed for the flow of traffic that we have in and around them. And it's something that I know we work hard with the school system on, and I know local law enforcement works hard getting the traffic moving around the area. So we do want to let people know that as the number of students are increasing and the number of parents dropping off, picking up, and students are coming to and from school, that does create a little bit of congestion, and want to make sure we get people's understanding with that.
Yes, and folks have been very cooperative and patient with us, so
right.
Appreciate that. We're busy on a normal day.
Right.
And these times are a little less than normal.
Right. I agree. I and the staff, we've tried to continually build our relationship with the Shenandoah County Public Schools, and by having a school resource officer assigned to each school, I know that our school board has been very supportive. I know that you as the superintendent, the previous superintendents that I've worked with have been very supportive, and quite frankly, all of the staff that we work with, the principals, assistant principals, and I guess the first question would be, how do you think that relationship is going on your all's end?
Sheriff Carter, thanks to Whitney and the officers she oversees, it's just been wonderful. At the start, at the outset, I think my first year as superintendent, we had a really serious safety issue at one of our high schools, you may recall.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And those are very scary times, but it's also a time to follow the plans that we have in place. And I know there was a great deal of not ease at that moment, but right. Ease knowing that you had law enforcement there on hand. And I also think, too, one of the things the resource officers have done so well is build those relationships with students. You know, you talk about community policing in urban areas and such, and talk about officers out of cars and walking beats and things. Having those resource officers in our schools are working on that same thing by building relationships with our student body and our school division, so that police and law enforcement are not people to be feared,
Right.
but people to go to for help. And so it's just been phenomenal. I think it's a model that I would say is one of the best in the nation.
Well, I know we appreciate that, and we work hard, and I know your staff works hard. You know, I tell people the school resource officers, they're not, and I think that's part of the success we've had here in Shenandoah County. They're not the behavioral specialist. They're there to protect kids. They're there to protect the faculty. They're there to protect the facility. If there's a person who comes there to inflict harm on the staff or the kids that are there, their job is not to get involved in the day-to-day disciplinary actions that school administrators or principals, they're the ones that are involved in that, and teachers. And wouldn't you agree that I think that's part of the success that we've had with the relationship, is keeping that understanding out there, making sure that we both respect each other's responsibilities, and you know what's the expectations that the school administration has, the school board has, the parents have, and just making sure that we're helping each other as we go through this journey each school year.
Absolutely, and I think if you follow the national media, you've seen instances where the resource officers were perhaps put in more of a disciplinarian type role, and those incidences did not go well. They reflected, I think, poorly on both law enforcement and on the school divisions where those things occurred. And I'm talking about resource officers, you know, taking on the role of the disciplinarian when perhaps they don't have all the information they need, whereas the school staff does. And so our mantra, and this is reflected in the Department of Education guidelines for school resource officers in Virginia, is that the role of the disciplinarian in the school, the person that administers our discipline policies, is our principals, and the resource officers are there for a support and a help. And like I said, I every day, just yesterday, I had a conversation with one of our principals, and that brought home how much help the resource officers were able to provide in a challenging situation.
Right. Well, and how about you, Whitney? I mean, as far as I know there's a constant flow of information between yourself and the school resource officers assigned to each school, and Dr. Johnston particularly. How do you feel like that flow is working? And I know it's something we talk about it. It's a grind, and you got to do it every day, and it's part of what we do. How do you feel about that?
I think we've all worked really hard to form the relationship that we have built together between the Sheriff's Office and Shenandoah County Public Schools. It does take constant work and communication, making sure that we're all on the same page and helping each other as much as we can, because at the end of the day, we all have the same goal, to keep the students and staff safe.
That's right. That's right. You know, Dr. Johnson, you brought up a good point, and I want to go back to it. I had a conversation with our state senator, Virginia State Senator Mauck, and I don't know. I'm part of the Virginia Sheriff's Association, part of their legislative committee, so I see these bills that come through as bills are being debated and voted on in Richmond, and I got a particular email at one time where they were looking at pulling funding for school resource officers in Richmond, and I called him directly, and it's been a difficult year in Richmond. There's been a lot of change, in a lot of areas, and I got to tell you, just from my perspective, it's something you mentioned a couple seconds ago. Not to be critical of some of these other agencies or some of these other jurisdictions, but I got to tell you, when I was on the phone call with the legislative committee and I heard about defunding school resource officer programs, I was floored. I mean, that to me was so foreign a concept. And then after I got to talking with some of the city sheriffs and some of the other peers or friends of mine throughout the state, you're right. I think this is just my perspective, or maybe in my opinion, but I think there's some jurisdictions where they're using the SRO program not for what it was actually intended to be used for. And, I get the whole prison or the pipeline, the school to prison pipeline and all that. I understand all that. But our people are not there to arrest kids. We're not there. That's not the focus of why we're there. We're there to help the schools, maintain a safe environment for kids and teachers and visitors. And I just think that in my mind, when I was telling Senator Obenchain, I said, look, when you get to Richmond, hopefully you can convey the message there that some school districts, I think, have it right. Some law enforcement agencies have it right, but please don't punish all of us because you've got an organization, in my opinion, that's gone a different path and a different direction. And I don't know. I guess that's just my take on that. I mean, I'm not. Every indication I have from our school board, everything I have from my board of supervisors here locally, the relationship I've had with you and previous superintendents is that, we want the funding at the levels that we have. We want to make sure that, the public expects to have a safe environment. We're all working towards that. I mean, you're not hearing anything different than that in our locality, are you?
Not a thing about that. I think we've established, like I said, a very good model that I think people respect and understand the value of. I sometimes think that in some of these other jurisdictions too, and particularly when you get into legislation, you have folks who perhaps get in the middle of some things maybe they don't know everything about. And I would encourage them to talk to folks like ourselves so we can explain the value and the relationships that are built and how much better our schools operate because we have this relationship. Again, in some of these incidents, I mean, and fortunately the most serious ones are very few and far between.
Right.
But when they occur, seconds make a huge amount of difference. And right. Like I said, even for me, I remember the incident occurred 5 years ago. Even just getting from my office to the school, was 5 minutes, and we already had law enforcement on hand. Right. And those minutes make a huge difference. And I just, I worry that I wouldn't want to sacrifice safety, again, given that it's works so well for us.
Well, and I tell you, I tell this to Whitney and tell this to my staff, when there's an issue and it deals with a child and it deals with a child's safety, I don't care if it's 3:00 in the morning, we're all awake. The principal's awake, the superintendent's awake, I'm awake. We're all involved and engaged in bringing whatever services we need to bring to bear to that issue, because that's the cornerstone of what we're doing here. We're here trying to maintain safety. That's the model that we have. And again, it's unfortunate that you do have some jurisdictions in some areas where that maybe it's just not being done that way. I'm not really sure.
And if I could add one thing too, it's also many times a matter of personal safety. So right. Even if it's not a threat against others, it may be a threat against oneself, self-harm. Right. And I know, for example, those wellness checks, the ability of resource officers to go to a home, check on the wellness of a child who may be in trouble. I know that we've saved lives in our community because of this program.
Right. Well, I agree. How about you, Whitney?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, having them there, it cuts down on the response time when something does happen, if something does happen. And also, like you said, the wellness checks and being able to check in with the kids that they do have relationships with. So it's not just a police officer coming to their residence. It's someone that they know and trust and have that relationship with. And being able to do that every day, I think, has definitely, like you said, saved lives.
Because some of these things happen maybe at 1:00 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so a principal or an administrator right. becomes alerted to it. Some of them live far away. They're not able to go make that wellness check. So they oftentimes, the first point of contact will be the resource officer, who then is able to enlist the help to make sure that everyone's safe.
Right. Well, listen, not to get too far into future planning or security improvements, but I know that at least my understanding of your administration and the previous administrations, that the Shenandoah County Public School System does have continuous planning for improving things like the physical plants of the facilities or capital improvement projects and things like that. Is that something that is going on, or if you want to speak to any part of that? Or?
Sure. We revisit annually with our safety committee that goes through and does an assessment of any places where we think we might have some vulnerabilities. And then they put forward a list of series of recommendations that then goes to our capital improvement planning group. So one of the things there would be, for example, if you enter, let's see, North Fork Middle School, there's a vestibule.
Right.
And when you come into the building, you have to be buzzed to get into the main part of the building.
Right.
A couple of our schools don't have those vestibules yet. So when you enter into the main building, and then there's someone there to greet you to then move you to where you need to be. And so we're working to try to get those vestibules in place in areas where we do not have them. And they've been in our capital improvement plan for a couple of years now.
Right.
Just haven't had the funding to move forward with them.
Yeah,
so.
and I tell you that the two main things, now that I'm sitting there thinking back to those public meetings we had at the three campuses, the two main things that parents wanted, they wanted improvements to access, and they wanted law enforcement there at the facility. Yeah. Those were the two big issues. So it's good to hear that we're still moving down that path.
And every school has secure access, and
right.
all the doors are secure, right. and all of that too. But again, those are just additional steps as we continue to look forward. Right.
Now, Whitney, I know we continually evaluate our school crisis pre-planning and conduct training for staff. Any thoughts on picking that up since we're hopefully coming to the end of this COVID tunnel here? I guess we're doing that on our end as well.
Right. So our school resource officers at the sheriff's office, we continually train on how to respond to an active threat. School crisis plans are reevaluated and revisited annually, along with any other school safety concerns, like Dr. Johnston said, with the division safety team. Myself, along with other leaders at the Shenandoah County Sheriff's Office, are certified in ALICE training, which stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. We have taught that training to Shenandoah County Public School staff as well as community groups in the past, and we will continue to do that in the future.
That's great. It's great to hear. And Dr. Johnston, before we leave, are there any other points or items you'd like to mention before you head out of here today?
Well, you did mention the relationship between our county board and board of supervisors, mm-hmm. and I know that our school board passed a resolution in support of the resource officers when there was some threat from the legislature that there might be a change in funding. So again, I know that our leadership, our elected leaders, are very supportive of the program as well, and I think we've earned that support. It's been a great relationship. Like I said, Whitney and I talk frequently. Mm-hmm. We bounce ideas around. She calls me and says, "What do you think?" I say, "Well, what do you think?" And so we talk through things. I involve staff as needed and so on, and it's just been a great relationship. She's been available, the officers have been available, and I hope we've been available as well, just to keep those relationships going again, because it's all about the health and safety of our kids.
Right. Well, Dr. Johnston, I tell you, you reminded me something. I'd forgotten about that. I'm glad you reminded me of that, because that means a lot when the governing bodies get together like that and have that resolution to support school safety and support what we're doing here on the ground, if you will. And I got to tell you, I can't say enough right now about the cooperation we're getting from the school board. My board of supervisors has been very helpful to me and very supportive of school safety and what we're doing here. And, I got to tell you also, I can't say enough about the principals that you guys have. It's such the school staff and administrators in each of the schools, they work so hard, and they are very helpful to us. And I know that they're committed to doing all the right things for the kids in this county. And I just want to let you know that before you leave. And one final point. I know you're headed into retirement, I believe, as I've read that in the local media, and I want to thank you personally for the help you've given me, the help you've given my staff, and you've always been there when we've needed advice, or if we've had a problem that we've had to work through, or an issue or concern or what have you. You've been very helpful with that, and I can't say enough about that. And I wish you the best, and want to thank you for everything you've done for this office, for me personally, and for the kids in this county.
Thank you very much, Sheriff Carter. I appreciate that.
Sure. Well, guys, again, I want to thank Dr. Mauck Johnston for being here with me today, and Sergeant Whitney Mauck. Again, this is Sheriff Timothy C. Carter, and thank you for joining me today. And don't forget to follow me at Timothy C. Carter on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, along with the full podcast that can be found on my YouTube. Thanks again.